All right, everybody, welcome Acting Up and Acting Up Radio, actingupradio.com. If you want to check us out online, you, of course, can go to actingupradio.com. All great stuff on there. Coming soon, by the way, I'm going to be launching a masterclass type of thing where I'm going to get folks here in LA area or wherever that they may want to teach you or say something to you. You know, you've probably seen Masterclass, but they deal in cooks and mechanics, and we're only going to deal in the industry. And also want you to know that it's going to be show business, because I deal with so many other actors, and I say, yeah, you know, this and that, and they go, wow, that's amazing. I never thought about that. I went, that's business parts of show business, and a lot of actors out there, I know you out there, you don't realize this is business. And by the way, even though I am that demographic that's not 20 years old, yes, I'm pretty savvy on social media, so we talk about that a lot, social media for actors. This week we are very excited. By the way, if you're looking and you're looking in the wings, I don't know where he's at. But he is a director, writer, and I'm not going to tell you who he is yet. You're not even going to see it in the lower thirds. I got to get a curtain for the other half of the show, so you don't know who's on, as it's a surprise. But I am very excited. By the way, on Instagram, if you want to go on there, you can go on to, of course, Will Roberts Actor. That's me. Check it out and like me and all that other stuff, because that's all us actors really want, is to be liked. So there that is. Okay, now without further ado, I'm very excited. This gentleman said, yeah, sure, I'd love to talk to you. I don't know why, but I'm very excited. And I did let him see the show, and we talk about whatever happens. And it's sort of like coffee with me. And I do have my coffee. I don't know if my guest has his coffee. Do you have any coffee there, Stephen?
No, I have some pure mineral water,
Oh,
however.
smart man. You are a smart man. Is it alkaline?
It is. The body is the temple of the spirit. So I worship this morning.
As opposed to a body is something you should take spirits in with a lot.
Quite right. An alternative view. Any way to get to the character.
Stephen Bernstein, director and writer. I'm very excited to have you on. And as you can see on the lower third, this is his website. I will be posting all this stuff, of course, on Acting Up Radio. Everything Stephen has done. Thanks for coming on the show, brother.
My great pleasure. I'm delighted to be here.
You have got to be, I'm telling you right now, you are going to get the award for the best backdrop ever on the show. Even though I'm screening.
There was controversy about this morning. My wife pointed out that I'd done several interviews with this behind me, and then when we cut it later, when I'm leaving my visual legacy, it'll seem as if I was in one room my entire life. In fact, there's a virtual Steve Bernstein, and there isn't a real one at all. But we do have other rooms. It's just that there's a lovely window light, three-quarter front lighting, which is always good for actors. A good thing for actors to remember, which is soft light from the front. No matter what anyone tells you what you want, that side light will add 20 years to you. So I'm not dumb. Lighting here, a slightly busy background, but there you are.
No, it's a tremendous background. I love it. I kind of wish I had something like that, but my wife is like, no, stop putting your junk up again. All right, so if she comes in, I will be frantically trying to get rid of my green screen, which is blue, my blue screen here. But okay, let's talk about things. First of all, you've been doing a lot of things in your career, and I have to say this, that, you know, back in the old days, I started in like 81 or 82, and I know you've been doing this for a long time. We didn't have multiple titles. We didn't say we were an actor that was a writer and a director, because they would go, decide one thing and let me see your black and white headshot. So with that being said, you are now in a day and age where all that stuff is very acceptable, but you're the real deal. And I hate to say this if anybody's out there right now going, what are you talking about? I have a card with 19 things I do. I'm official. You've been doing this a while. Let's go back to the beginning. When did you start?
There's two different ways I can put it. I can tell you the truth, in which case I would seem old and possibly irrelevant and lose work. Or I could tell the accepted lie and take 10 years off my age. Let me say that I started, although I'm American-born, in the UK.
Okay.
I was trained at the BBC to be a writer and a director. And then there was a new phenomena that was available then, just becoming available, where bands had this idea they would make videos of themselves and send it to people called A&R. And send something called a VHS or They had a lot of money, a 3/4-inch video.
Woo! Big
And our guy
stuff.
would look at it and discover the band, and we thought it was a great idea. Initially, there was a guy, John Roseman. We would shoot against a flat backdrop, and then the bands would be happy. They'd pay £100, and off they would go.
What's a quid? Wait, what's 100 quid here?
It's 100 pounds, 100 pounds, which is like, then it was probably about $150.
Wow.
Yeah, an hour, and shooting on film, 16 millimeter, really, really very, very fancy stuff.
Yeah.
And I was valuable because I had a camera and I had some lights. My abilities as a writer and director were irrelevant, but my ownership of a camera, very relevant.
Yeah.
You know, the world's changed now, sadly, and there's a lot of cinematographers out there, or directors, who think that if they go and buy a camera, acquire also with it a skill set. It goes to our culture and the belief that everything ultimately can be purchased and nothing ultimately has to be earned. And I think kind of the real nature of the world is the opposite.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how good the camera is that you buy. Ultimately, you really have to earn a skill set that goes with it. You have to have experience on sets. You have to understand actors. You have to understand something about writing, a great deal about lighting. Only in that way can you make a film probably worth seeing. The camera's not going to save you in that regard, but in this particular instance, it created a career for me.
And I have to tell you, I'm glad you brought that up because, you know, I remember working for Fox and CBS and PBS, and I was a Fox Kids Club host, and I was what we call a one-man band. And in the news industry, one man basically means you shoot, you edit, you host, you do your thing. And in that case, I remember burning up IBM laptops because rendering, and I was using Avid. And you know, and I'm glad you brought that up because you know you're right. Everybody's learning on YouTube or Uncle Harry's blog, and they're like everybody's a writer, everybody's a director. And the sad part about it, the most even, is or Steve. Should I say Steve or Steven?
Either one. Steve's great. Yeah.
But do your friends say Steve or Steven?
I don't have any friends. I
Good.
work.
I'm going to start with it.
I work in the film business, but if you want a friend, get a dog. I think is what.
Good.
Steve would be best. Yeah.
But the reality is that, and I want you to really chime in on this, is that unfortunately nowadays, I said this back when I was doing it in the 90s, and I said, you know, because of Blair Witch, everything has changed. Now we can shoot things through my underwear, which I hope we don't do, and we can do it in post, and we can splatter ketchup on it and call it art, and we can shoot on iPhones, which I do a lot. I'm kind of an expert at that. But that technology has really gained in some great speed. But the problem nowadays is that I don't think a lot of the newer people doing this get the fact that you went through, I went through too, a trial and error and didn't have that amazing equipment all the time and had to really kind of get it by really learning all about it. And now we go like this, there's an app for it. What do you think?
Well, look, I think the greatest lessons I've learned have been from my failures. And to be a successful failure, you have to make sure that you have the opportunities to fail as often and as regularly as possible. So the great thing about the emerging technologies, or the technologies that have now emerged, is that you have lots of opportunities to shoot all the time and fail all the time. And by failing, you discover, well, yeah, you can shoot something on an iPhone, but if you shoot something with an Alexa or a 65mm camera, there's some visceral reaction in an audience that isn't there when you shoot with that small plastic lens. And then you begin to examine and consider what's happening. You also realize that technology is a wonderful tool, like writing's a wonderful tool, like actors are wonderful tools, but we are ultimately in the service of that bigger idea, which is the affect on the audience. And we can only affect audience by orchestrating all these different devices that are available to us. It doesn't matter if we do a great storyboard, and certainly doesn't matter if we take some course on screenwriting or learn the 3-act orthodoxy. Remember, 95% of all films are based on that same 3-act orthodoxy, which is prevalent in the film industry. 95% of films also fail. Now, in most models, certainly a scientific model, we would say, hey, if something fails 95% of the time, it's a failure. But that's not the case in Hollywood because every reader, every studio is looking for the same basic model. Now, some filmmakers, some writers, Charlie Kaufman, among others, Mike Leigh, among others, have begun experimenting for years with other forms. They violated the orthodoxy. They took the risk and actually risked failing and discovered a new way of communicating, a more, I think, effective way, and a mechanism and a device and a structure of film that actually works better than the three acts, because no one would accuse Charlie Kaufman of using any traditional structure.
Right.
The same thing is true in cinematography. When I was starting out with doing these music videos, I got bored. The wonderful thing about boredom is that you do something enough, you lose interest in it. And when you lose interest in it, you do a wonderful thing, you become self-destructive. That is, you stop doing the thing, success. What happens with a lot of actors that I hire, particularly ones that come from television, is they've learned a shtick. Yeah. They've learned gestures, little movements.
They're tricks.
That get a laugh, exactly right. Yeah. And they think, okay, now I'm doing a film, look, I'll go to my safe place, and I'll use those devices, those tricks that I've always used, and then you as director go up to them, and I would never do this because there's a particular way to give notes, but what I'm thinking in my head is, if you're doing a trick, you're not showing the truth of this particular character.
Right.
And that's a problem ultimately for all of us, is that we want to go to those safe places. It's only when you throw those away that you start taking risks to start re-examining the form and discover that maybe the orthodoxies, the traditions, and what everyone tells you is right isn't right, that you begin discovering your own individual voice as a cinematographer, as a director, etc. So when I started doing the cinematography and I always got bored and self-destructive, I stopped doing the safe thing. I stopped lighting from 3/4 above and doing the rim light and everything else. I said, everyone tells me never to light from below. Let's take a big, soft, non-directional light, put it beneath the actors and uplight them, add a little bit of fill for the eyes to see what happens.
Wow.
And it was stunning. It looked like Renoir, because audiences anticipate light coming from above. When it comes from below, they don't sense there being a light there at all. And it seemed as if the characters, the musicians, iridesced from within.
Interesting.
And then I began to modify it and modify it and modify it. I'm not being prescriptive about the way anyone should light, but it goes to a way of thinking for any artist.
Yeah.
Which, when you discover different approaches, when you think, there's a great philosopher named Edward de Bono who talks about lateral thinking. Don't think linearly. Take whatever you believe to be true and in the first attempt do the opposite, because it opens new avenues for
your brain pathways too.
You create new neural pathways, and you see things in different ways, and that's unintentionally what I was doing in lighting, and subsequently what I would do in the way I directed actors, and subsequently in the way that I would write. I've got a whole different way of writing than most writers do, and it's been hugely productive. I've sold, 11 scripts in 3 years, cranking the things out, and finding a voice that actors and producers and people in finance are responding to, because I violated every single traditional rule.
Now, boy, a lot of great and interesting stuff here. Number one is that I totally get what you're saying about this. One of the things I do a lot of segments, and I started chopping out the spaces in between words and really getting this sort of like interesting jump cut, which also helped change the beat of the comedy. Because it was not just waiting and the actors thinking. You would go, and then you go, oh, I get the beat. But, I understand what you're saying from going from a different perspective of trying to do something different. By the way, i.e., the lighting you're explaining to me sounded like vaudeville lighting.
Very much like that.
But what I want to say on what you're saying is that there is a right way to do it, which you are doing, and there's a wrong way to do it, which I see a lot in Hollywood and in general nowadays, whereas everybody goes, we have to do something different. So then, for instance, like, I don't want to kind of cap on my younger audience, the iGens and the millennials, but like I'll watch that and I'll go, is there a punchline here, or what are we trying for here? And no one seems to know what we're trying for, other than it's just different. And different is nice, but it sure isn't pretty. And that's from Chorus Line. Pretty is not what it's about. I mean, you know what I mean? People are trying for tricks.
But I would add one addendum to that. I think for them, as artists, it's an important part of their process.
Okay.
Because I think that first, by becoming the iconoclast, by rejecting all the existing notions, you then test the form. Hopefully, you will fail miserably. You will be ridiculed and humiliated, and then you'll look and you'll say, what did I do here that was of value? and what did I do that was valueless?
Yeah.
And then you still find your individualism, you still find your own voice, and you still can become that iconoclast. But as you rightly say, you shouldn't be an iconoclast for the sake of being an iconoclast. But by the same token, you have to be brave enough to find your own individual voice. And the problem in our industry is it is a reactionary industry because money's involved.
Yeah.
The minute, and this for actors, this is devastating, and for any young person starting out, when someone's spending millions of dollars, they're going to be saying, well, if this person fails and I have hired them, it be on my head.
Yeah.
Therefore, I'm not going to hire the best person. I'm going to hire the person who someone else will look at and say, I would have hired them as well, the safe choice. Yeah. So don't hire the good young actor that you've just discovered who's brilliant but eccentric. Hire the actor who's been in 15 television series, who's got the great resume, who hasn't done anything interesting in 25 years, but the last 3 shows have got mid-level ratings. Yeah. The senior executive above you, who, if you're working in a studio, is not going to fire you for hiring this guy, you hire him. Why take a risk and risk your job? When you're lighting a set, the first big Hollywood film I came was it's called Bulletproof, with Adam Sandler and Damon Wayans.
I remember it.
Action film, huge. Yep. And I looked around driving through what was Gacy Universal, and you know how very strange, life is so odd for us that it only seems real when it resembles fiction. We have no real understanding of the ordinary physical world. So suddenly as I passed through a studio gate, I said, oh, this is like a movie, this must be real. And then I was working, and I had all these equipment and all these lights and all these dollars they were paying me, and it was absolutely fantastic. And then I thought, I better not do anything dangerous with my lighting because they won't pay me all this money. They won't hire me again. I won't get to come to the studio again. So I began to get more and more and more conservative. Now, multiply that by a few years. Now suddenly you're the top of the tree in television or in film. You're an actor who's got a successful TV series. What's the chances of you doing something radical? Suddenly you're a successful TV actor doing comedy, and some young filmmaker phones you up and says, I got a drama about murder and complex sexuality or whatever it is. Hey, do you want to come and do it? And your first instinct is, what? Get off this gravy train?
Yeah.
But the great thing about all of us as artists is that is our self-destructive, but ultimately, I would say, our phoenix impulse. Because although we destroy our careers temporarily, we rediscover ourselves over and over again.
Absolutely.
I'm talking too much, but I'll say one more.
No, really not at all. No, you're not. By the way, you're the guest on the show, so if I talk too much, we're in trouble. Be clear.
That's why I came on the show, so I could talk.
Because your wife won't let you. Hey, honey,
yeah,
let him talk.
Yeah, she's not looking at me right now, so I'm doing okay. I was shooting a film called SWAT. Was doing the action unit, and it was everything theoretically that I could dream of. We had 23 cameras, I think. Wow. Stunt men and women, 4-ton plate that we ran a cable through, so we could take our 3/4 size aircraft and bring it onto the 3rd Street Bridge and crash it, have a shootout, enormous numbers of lights. Everything was lit in all directions. It was a dream, and I was virtually suicidal, because the only thing worse than not getting what you want is getting what you want and still feeling spiritually bankrupt.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, this is everything I thought that I wanted when I was in the UK, and there's not a great deal of satisfaction. Now, I'm not saying it's a great film.
Yeah, no, it is great. Actually. Yeah.
And we looked at the dailies, and we saw and the cut, and we had all these cameras. Everything about shooting lots of cameras, tons of cuts, you can really get the action, the energy going. It was fantastic. And great actors, Samuel Jackson, Colin Farrell. It was fantastic.
One thing you said, I'm going to go ahead and give your social media. By the way, if you go, or in general media, Somebody's Studios, and that's Somebody's, SOMEBODY, Studios, that's plural.com. Check that out, and I want you to look at it. It's actually quite I love the site, and I love it, and I think it's very indicative of who you are from what I've gathered, because it's got that beautiful contrast black and white, which I absolutely love and have wanted to, in my own personal life, do a a black and white sort of silent film and do a Chaplin type of homeless thing. But my point is, someone did something like that. But the point is that that is such a beautiful, you can't lie picture on your website. I love it. And it's really quite amazing. On Instagram, it's Stephen Bernstein, director, writer. That's the whole thing. It's like supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, the writer, director. Stephen Bernstein.
Director, writer.
I'm sorry. Director, writer. Got it.
The Facebook page is writer, director, but the Instagram page is director, writer, just so we confuse people as much as possible.
Because I'm really confused. And on Twitter, it's Steve B. Film. That's Steve B. Film. Either way, you can go on to actingupradio.com, check it out, and I will have a full story on this young man, and we'll go from there. All right, so one thing you said that absolutely has to piss off every actor, including me, is, well, I went with the safe choice because I know that they know what they're doing and they've got a track record. Now, actors in Hollywood and outside of Hollywood are sitting here at their phones, or however they do, going, why isn't my agent calling me? And I do a lot of outbound. Why is my man? Well, it's because, you got to have guest star, co-star, blah, blah, blah. So tell me, Steve, what is the key for actors that don't have all that, other than a sandwich board, shaving your legs, sitting in a bar stool in West Hollywood, or burning yourself in public?
I'm trying to get by the leg shaving.
I knew you were.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I, as a director, be it in commercials or in films or in television, don't always go for the safe choices. I have to argue with studios very, very often. But and I understand where the studios, why they have to be conservative. By the way, the bigger the organization, the more money, the more conservative people are, because there's more to lose. Yeah. And independent films and independent productions, and now with streaming, they're more inclined, fortunately, to take risks on unknown actors. But how odd is this idea of unknown? How do you measure a person's performance abilities or performance as an actor based on whether they're known or not? And that goes to this concept of validation. Nobody trusts, or rarely do people trust, their own sensibilities. And what they're really saying is, well, if other people have liked it, therefore, I must like it, or if I do like it, it's validated by other people liking it. The second part is it is a commercial industry. I was going before about the huge budgets that we work on. Yeah. We're working on huge budgets. People are taking risks with big money. You're going to have to explain to your investors or to your board of directors or whoever the important and loving capitalists are, and we do love them because without them we couldn't make movies, why you took a risk on an unknown actor, director, producer, whatever it is. So there's all those reasons. But here's what I've discovered. The key for actors, I think, is not the studios and not even the directors. Although if you've got a director who's absolutely insists on casting you like Coppola and Brando in Godfather, fantastic. Yeah. But it's really the casting directors. Because I will spend weeks or months with a casting director. And I trust them. I love them. I work with some of the best there are. And initially, they'll give me my list of actors that I know and like, which always goes to actors that I'm thinking of when I'm writing. I like to meet lots of actors, and I never read them, no matter how inexperienced they are. Rarely. I'm much more interested in finding out who they are as people. I'm interested in what they think about. I'm interested in what they're reading. And I can derive from that whether they'll be able to take notes, whether they're centered, whether they have a complex understanding of the world, that sort of thing. But then after 2 days, 3 days, a few weeks, we'll start getting to some of the support roles, or maybe we even cast our main role. And the casting director will say to me, who I trust, there's a person that I saw read the other day. And they didn't get that role, but I thought they were special. Would you like to meet them, or would you read them? And those are the cases where I might actually read them when they're completely unknown. And I have, on each of my films, discovered actors in that way who I had never heard of, never seen, were unknown in terms of the studio thinking were not valuable, what were fantastic actors. Right. And that's what casting directors do. Now, this goes to the idea of why I tell my acting friends, don't be discouraged, never to be discouraged, because the thing about good news is it never announces itself. The bad news, the bills, our disease, our advancing age, all the other miseries that is the human condition, we wake up to every day. Mm-hmm. But the joy and promise and opportunity that's coming is not announced with trumpets or garlands or cherubs appearing on the ceiling of our bedroom. It simply occurs.
Absolutely.
And to an actor who goes to every single audition, every single reading, every single awful cattle call, what you're hoping is not necessarily getting employed, but a casting director spotting you. Yeah. And then doing what happened to, I've got a film coming out shortly it was called Dominion, it's called Last Call now, with which I wrote and directed about the last days of Dylan Thomas.
Yes, which, by the way, I saw clips. Very nice. I saw it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Well, it's got John Malkovich, my dear friend, who's
yes.
a fantastic actor. It's got Rhys Ifans, who gives the playing Dylan Thomas the best, not because I directed him, but I was on the journey with him, the best performance on screen that I've ever seen. Yeah. It was breathtaking. I hope people get a chance to see it. The beautiful and very talented Romola Garai, Tony Hale, who plays a serious role and does it magnificently. Rodrigo Santoro, who's absolutely brilliant in the film.
And the way you shot it, by the way, I just want to say that when they see this, because I'll try to. I saw the trailer on I think YouTube or Vimeo or something like that. I'm going to put it in the story because right. Again, you can't lie with the style you did, and it's just it's just real. It's just people being real and not going, I'm acting now.
No, that's you go to exactly a very important thing. It's Ocean Mammon as well, who goes to your exact point, because what I encourage all the actors, I love my writing. I'm a narcissist like every other writer, any other person in the film industry. But what I learned is that the actor ultimately has to own the character. Yeah. And they're going to discover that character through their own processes. Sure. And if they're struggling to remember a line, or if there is a line that is awkward or poorly written, the last thing you want is for them to be going through the process of trying to remember what the line is. So I say to the actors, look, I'm the writer. I know the writing is beautiful. It's basically a lot of free verse. So I wrote part of it in the style of Dylan Thomas. But this is your moment. This is your character. You're experiencing these things. If you want to alter the line, if you want to improvise, do. You've got carte blanche. I will protect you. We do as many takes as you want. There is no wrong on this set. We are on this journey together. And it facilitates. And I find that it works very, very well. And then I always give notes privately. There's never any criticism. And they have complete freedom. Even with marks, I don't like actors having to find marks. Right. So years ago, I was a cinematographer, and I shot a film called Monster with Charlize Theron, which we had the good fortune for Charlize to win the Oscar for that. But one of the first things I said to Charlize was, Charlize, I've got these lights that will move with you. I'm going to handhold the camera myself. You go anywhere you feel your character would go and forget that I'm here.
That's amazing.
And there's one scene in particular when she's murdering her first murder after the guy has attacked her. She just let loose. Sure. And it was great to see somebody terrifyingly, completely in the moment and inhabiting that character. Sure. And the same thing with our lighting on Last Call. We lit in such a way that the characters go absolutely anywhere. They'd always have a backlight. There would be a floating light moving with them. We shot in black and white because, interestingly, in scientific studies, we've discovered that black and white is actually a more emotive format. It actually creates a greater emotional response to an audience than color does. So for all those reasons, we shot the film in that way. And to see Rhys and John, who there's one scene that's not in the movie anymore, sadly, where John plays this drunken doctor who may be responsible for Dylan Thomas's death. John began moving around the room drunkenly, under the table, over the table, by saying his lines, and it was magnificent. And it depressed me when at the end of it everyone applauded. Because when people applaud a performance, you pretty much know that it's not going to end up in the movie because it was a film that becomes disproportionate to the rest. Yeah, yeah. His performance was perfect throughout. His intelligence was fantastic. He's still the featured actor in the movie, but for that individual scene, it didn't work as well because it took the audience out of the film for that moment, but the performance was perfect. Look, acting's a tough job, but for me, you've got to create a set and an atmosphere that the actors feel they can fail gloriously and enjoy the process and be nurtured and protected.
Well, you don't get a lot of directors that, and in my experience recently, a lot of them go, I don't know, and I'm not really sure what my vision is. And so, one of the things that is happening a lot lately is those discovery or there's no line stuff in there. You're working out some scenario from someone who murdered someone and you look like them. But the point is that I find, because I've done a few of those, that they then say to the actor, I don't care. I don't give a crap about the lines that you're doing. Just give me, and the word I want to use is be, just be. And I know that you know this, and I don't want to sound trite or like I'm trying to say a particular phrase that whatever, but acting, it really shouldn't be about acting. And I know you agree with this, and based on what you said, and letting actors or the person doing that role roam and feel free, because when you put them into a box, just call it theater. And
Right.
when you call it theater, there is a moment at the end where we go, that's awesome, we got to come back and see this. But
Right.
I really agree with what you're saying, and all the things you said as a director just wants me to ask you, do you have any kids, and do you need any? Because I would love to have a dad like you. Because I don't think there's a lot of directors, I'm going to be honest with you, Steve.
Better writer and better editor. He's a film editor than I am. So I got very lucky that genius skips generations. So
Oh, that's funny.
He's a genius. So
Yeah, my dad was an alcoholic, so yes, you're right. But the bottom line is that, and I'm not saying this to be able to stroke anybody's ego. You're doing what you do, and obviously you're successful because of what you do. And a little note to take on what you said earlier is that as an actor, our job is to make you feel confident that the money spent is not going to be thrown in the toilet. Because if you do get in front of them and you go, I don't know what I'm doing, they go, oh shit, we're screwed. And then no one's got a film or a commercial or whatever.
Right.
So that's the tough part for actors. And so I want you to end on any sort of, like I say to people, look, the best four-letter word in the English language is free. And nowadays it's tough to get anything free. Can you give any free advice? You've given a lot. But to actors in regards to how to maybe, I don't know, what's your passion about what actors can do to be able to be noticed nowadays? Because we have our phones or we have ways of doing things. What is that mode? And what is that passion you think that you can instill in actors that will maybe get them a chance?
Fearless. You have to be fearless. You have to think less. Fear eats the soul. Fear consumes us creatively. Fear destroys everything good about us. Fear subverts relationships. Fear takes the joy from life. And fear undermines every performance. And the problem, because we're now part of a grand network or a web, is that we're aware of the potential catastrophes. And if our own life doesn't accord us enough potential catastrophes, we're now electronically connected to a world that is full of unfortunate events. Yeah. And if things aren't happening to us, they're happening to us vicariously. So when you go onto a film and you're thinking, my God, they spend a lot of money and they're relying on me, and what if I fail? Failure is a thing that you should embrace. And anything you fear, you should embrace. Love failure. I have failed many, 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 many times. And from each failure, I became a better mind, a better spirit, a better filmmaker. And had I not failed, I wouldn't know anything at all. So if you embrace failure, you've got nothing to fear. When you go to an audition, what exactly are you frightened of? Think of the other side of that fear. What's going to happen? You're not going to get the job? Fantastic. What I just said moments ago was you may be spotted by a casting director, and again, as I said, because joy doesn't announce itself with garlands and cherubs, it simply occurs. You may, 3 months from now, get a call from that casting director saying, you didn't realize it, but when you were not getting the last job, you're getting the next job, and it's a lead. The same thing when you're working with heavyweight or significant actors. All those actors have the same affliction that you do, fear. And although you don't realize they're terrified, they're at a much higher precipice. So when they fall harder and farther. So when you're there, you are their brother and sister, and you can quietly commune with them, knowing that you are sharing that same, that paralyzing affliction, which is fear. So if you can be fearless in all things, if you can embrace failure, if you recognize that anything that goes wrong ultimately will make good in the end, make you a better person, make you a better filmmaker, a better actor, then you have nothing ultimately to worry about. And particularly on set, you can separate the actors into those that are fearful and those that are past fear. And it's not always the experienced actors.
Right.
Pacing, as you know as an actor, and so many of the listeners know, when you anticipate a line, it's deadly for us film directors.
Yeah, telescoping, or televising, yeah.
Exactly. So when someone says something, it's so important to listen to what they're saying. And I used to teach my young actors, here's 3 different lines I might want you to say. And I'm going to gesture to you, this one, or this one, so you know which one. And then I would wait. And they'd be sitting there thinking and waiting for me to gesture. And then I'd say, all right, now let's look at the playback. Say, what a great moment that is. I said, what are you doing there? They go, I was just waiting and thinking. I go, exactly. But when you're nervous, you talk fast, you anticipate lines, you worry about getting it right, etc. If you can improvise, if you can turn to a director and say, hey, yeah, I'll do it the way it's written, but would you mind if I just do a little bit of freeform on the second one? Who does that? But when you do that, I as a director, and there are many like me, will say, fantastic. A confident actor, take their time, pick up a prop and play with it, walk around the set, to be relaxed, to be at ease. And you can't tell someone, relax.
No.
What you tell someone is to be fearless.
Yeah.
And if you're a good director, you create a set where it is a volatile, they can't be injured, and you nurture. And if you nurture, then the nurturee, the actor, should feel at peace with themselves and take risks. Can't take risks unless you lack fear.
Stephen Bernstein, director, writer. Check out the Instagram. You see it on the bottom. Of course, the website. You can see that on the bottom as well. I really appreciate you coming on the show. Hang tight before you go anywhere. I'm just going to close this out, but I really appreciate you coming on the show and giving us your pearls of wisdom. If there's a coin slot somewhere on your laptop or wherever you're watching this, please put some money in there because this was well worth it. Hey, folks, thanks for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. Check out the show on actingupradio.com and, of course, Instagram. My Instagram, Will Roberts Actor. I just want to leave you with one thing. I absolutely agree with what Steve said, is that being fearless and knowing what you are and who you are. And when you walk in anywhere, you have to take command of where that is. Don't over-command that, but take your time and work with people. Do whatever you can. Show people who you truly are. Stop acting. Stop acting and just, I hate to say be, because I feel like I'm going to smoke a joint when I say that, but the fact of the matter is that if you are being that way, there's no room anywhere around your space for anybody to go, well, let's do that again. Can you do it real? Just be real, because if you're not real, get out of the business. I'll see you next week.
Yeah. You know what? I like to play. No diggity, no doubt. Play on, play that. Play on, play that. Okay. Drake dropped the verse.
It's going down, fade to Black Street. The homies got at me, collab creations. Funk like acne, no doubt. I put it down, never slouch. As long as my credit can vouch, a dog couldn't catch me. Say out. Tell me who could stop with Dre making moves, attracting honeys like a magnet, giving them orgasms with my mellow accent. Still moving this flavor with the homies Black Street and Teddy, the original rough shakers.
Shutting it down, good lord. Baby got them open all over town. Strictly bitch, you don't play around. Cover much grounds, got game by the pound. Getting paid is a forte, each and every day. True play away, I can't get her out of my mind. Wow, I think about the girl all the time. Wow, wow.
died, a little part of me died with her, and I don't think I'll ever get that back.
Dreams are like angels, they keep at bay. Love is the light scaring darkness away. I'm so in love with you.
Stop it! No, stop it! Stop! I can't touch you!
Your gold. The power of love.
That torture of mine you provided to give me the chance to understand what you mean by love.
The power of love. A force from above. A skyscraping dawn. Flame on burn desire. They can't have fire. Purge the soul.
You are a remarkable woman, Annie Parker.
I'll protect you from the hoodie claw. Keep the vampires from your door. When the chips are down, I'll be around with my undying, death-defying love for you. Envy will hurt itself. Let yourself be beautiful, sparkling like flowers and pearls and pretty girls. Love is like an energy, rushing inside.
After all this, what is it that you love?